Hi, just thought I'd slip in an extra reading because the last thing I read, nobody turned up with pitchforks and burning torches. So I'm taking that as an endorsement of my reading to you. And this time it's not a ghost story; it's a sort of autobiography and Christmas period history, really. It's from a book called Early to Rise: A Sussex Boyhood by Bob Copper. So Sussex is a county on the south coast of England, actually where I'm from. And Bob Copper was a notable figure in folk music, part of the Copper family, who I believe are still going, and they preserved and performed and recorded a whole load of regional folk songs that would probably otherwise be lost by now. And he also wrote at least three books of recollections because he was born in 1915, so he had a sort of long history of living in the countryside and of what it was like being part of a community of rural workers. So, from Early to Rise, a description of Christmas Day. Part of the context is that in communities like this, the Christmas roasts, goose, turkey, beef, that sort of thing, would often be cooked by the baker in their huge oven because people's own ovens wouldn't have been big enough. Okay. By 12 o'clock on Christmas morning, the front room was bedecked and burgeoning like a green forest glade. The sideboard was laden with bottles of port wine and sherry, bowls of tangerines and nuts, and boxes of dried figs, dates, and crystallized fruits, while a fire crackled merrily in the hearth. Mother and two or three odd aunties were busy in the scullery cooking vegetables and preparing sauces and all the attendant etceteras, without which the main ingredient, gently browning in Mr. Hilda's oven, would not be fully appreciated, and steam from the Christmas pudding as it bubbled gently in a large iron saucepan at the back of the hob filled every nook and corner of the cottage with spicy ambrosial aroma. The company, mostly relatives, was beginning to assemble, with everyone in a jovial mood and on their best behaviour, showing off the ties, socks, handkerchiefs, and pairs of gloves they had received as presents that morning. And as the glasses of wine were handed round, a vibrant sense of warmth and good fellowship prevailed. There was an air of excitement, and the womenfolk were becoming intensely concerned with laying the three tables, one in the front room, one in the kitchen, and another in the scullery for the children, which was necessary to get everyone seated. They scuttled in and out with plates, glasses, cutlery, and cruets, arranging and rearranging fussily until the spread met their critical approval. The men, in an expansive mood, talked of Christmases gone by, with the seats of their trousers to the fire, and handled their unaccustomed cigars like cows with muskets, while we, the small fry, were left pretty much to our own devices. One year our devices included surreptitiously filling our glasses with sherry instead of ginger wine, and the holiday spirit suddenly slipped into top gear. Life put on a great big smile, and Ron and I laughed. Ron's his brother. Ron and I laughed and skylarked all the way down to the bakehouse to fetch the turkey and joint of beef. On the journey home, with our succulent loads swinging between us, I had an inspiration. There had been a pretty sharp frost that morning, and the pond was frozen over. One or two small children had been tentatively testing the strength of the ice, but the chance of it bearing any substantial weight was slim. Ron, I said, all valiant with sherry, we've never took the old bird across the pond before. Let's give her a try, shall us? Ron mumbled dissenting noises behind me, but as I was in the leading shafts, he had no option but to follow me. Gingerly easing one shiny brown shoe in front of the other, I edged forward onto the yielding ice. Ron kept up a rumble of protest at the back, but I pushed on over the undulating surface. "The more she bends, the more she bears," I cried. I was feeling buoyantly confident, and we were already more than halfway across. "Come on, we're going to make history today, old kiddie," I said. "Yeah," was the sardonic reply. "We'll make history all right if we drop the bloody loss in the pond." Just then there was a fusillade of sound like rifle fire, and I dropped through the ice and stood knee-deep in freezing water. The stretcher tilted dangerously, and the two dishes started to slide forward, and were only saved from a watery grave by Ron slowly sinking down behind me, till he stood in the mud on the same level as I, restoring the stretcher to an even keel. It was a fearful moment. We took stock, and ignoring the state of our clothes, were thankful enough that the dinner was still intact. With the crisis over, we sploshed ashore and onto the bank, where, with handfuls of grass, we wiped off the worst of the creamy grey mud with which our best shoes and the trouser legs of our Sunday suits were plastered. "I told you it wouldn't bear," said Ron as we squelched up the road, leaving a sad, dripping trail behind us. Back in the cottage, the state of our clothes passed unnoticed in the excitement, and the bustle of dishing up what was generally considered to be the meal of the year. It was an unqualified success, and as we looked round at the happy faces munching away ecstatically at the loaded plates before them, we observed a diplomatic silence about how narrowly their dinner had avoided finishing up at the bottom of the duck pond. Ron gave me a knowing wink, and we tucked another guilty secret under our belts alongside the stolen gooseberries, Miss Mackintosh's cat. And just read a little tiny bit from one of the other books, Song for Every Season, because it's another account of Christmas, and it's got a piece of lore that I'd never heard before to do with mince pies. So this is after the massive Christmas lunch. "There was always something rather odd about tea time on Christmas Day. It seemed more of a ceremony than a meal, whereas no one could imagine Christmas Day without its lavish display of a huge iced cake, sweet and savoury sandwiches, chocolate biscuits and cream confections and homemade mince pies. Neither could they raise the slightest enthusiasm for it. They were just not hungry. While teacups were drained in quick succession, the mountains of foodstuffs remained practically untouched. The Christmas cake was pecked and nibbled at as a sort of ritual, but the mince pies remained a problem. Each mince pie eaten, it used to be said, ensured one happy month in the ensuing year. And although from January until about April or May could be accounted for fairly comfortably, the fate of high summer would be in the balance, until finally after August or September, despite the loosening of belts and the unfastening of top trouser buttons, the struggle would have to be abandoned, and the remainder of the year reluctantly left to chance. So mince pies, you have to eat 12 on Christmas Day.